Hey, everybody, welcome to Think Business Exclusives, Getting to the Soul of Business. This is a limited series I am doing with business leaders, people who are really making a difference in not only their teams' lives, but people all over the world. I'm really grateful to have Chris Ronzio here with me today because to me, he's doing incredible things. And when his agency reached out to me to see if I could get him on the show, I couldn't wait because what he's doing is absolutely incredible. He's the founder and CEO of Trainual, a leading SaaS platform that transforms the way small businesses onboard, train, and scale their teams. He also has a podcast, The Fastest Growing Companies and Organized Chaos. He's also the author of a best-selling book, The Business Playbook, How to Document and Delegate What You Do So Your Company Can Grow Beyond You. Chris, I really appreciate you being on the show today. And where I want to start is what I find so interesting about people is what kind of gets sprouted in them at an early age. So here you are, and you are helping the world become a better place by training people, and close to 60,000 business leaders are cutting through the noise with your content. And we'll get into the numbers of the type of companies that you're helping, but what in you drives you to help train others?
Hey, John, thanks so much for having me. So what in me drives the training of others? I think the reason Trainual exists and what really excites me is I want to make business easier, small business easier. And having grown small businesses and worked with small businesses my whole life, I know how hard it is, how burdensome it can be, how it takes over your life. And I want to, just like the podcast says, organize chaos. I want to make running a business a little easier. And it's something I've always been interested in since I was a little kid. Maybe it was like OCD kind of tendencies, but color coding my closets and just keeping everything organized was always my thing. And so I'm just taking that to the business world.
Yeah. But in many ways, I think sometimes we kind of teach our pain, right? And so I think so many businesses come from, that type of depth. And so, when it sounds like you're half joking about OCD and things of that nature. But where was the struggle that of your journey that got you to even want to kind of have a solution to make things easier for others? So I guess what I'm asking also is, where was it hard for you that really struck a chord to make it easier for other people?
Yeah, so my first business was a video production company called EVC, Event Video Company. So I wanted to be like NBC, ABC. Well, I've got EVC,
I like it.
Event company. And what we did was film youth sporting events all across the US. So it started at my high school, and then it was state level events, then New England, where I grew up. And as I was growing the business, I was increasingly putting the pressure on myself to do all of the jobs in the business. And that was how we got by. It was like our competitive advantage was I would just work harder. I would spend all night editing. I would do my homework like in the morning, sitting on the floor outside of the classroom, and because I was working all night on my new website or whatever it was. And I thought just working hard was the competitive advantage. And it took going to college for me to understand I'm in class. I have to be in class, and there's customers that want things done. I can't be there. So I have to show someone else how to do it. And I unlocked that for the first time when I went to college and realized if I can show someone else how to do what I do, then I don't have to do it. It was like this newfound freedom. But for me, it was years and years of slowly learning that lesson and having tons of problems like productions, people canceling last minute, and I had to fly across the country and fill in. That's the kind of stuff that you get burned enough and see the pains of having the burden of the business rest on your shoulders. And then you kind of want to spread out responsibility and empower other people. And that's where training and Trainual came to be.
Yeah. So, let's talk about slowly learning lessons. I think we're in a world today where delayed gratification is is a lot harder for people today, right? And instant gratification is something that I don't think is realistic, but it's what people expect today. There was an article in 2008 in the Atlantic called "Is Google Making Us Stupid?" talking about not only Google but technology as far as it rewiring our brains, where it's difficult for people to even read right now a couple pages because everybody wants everything so quickly. And so I
Mhm.
just want to kind of dive into that, because when you say slowly learning lessons, to me, what I hear, and you'll clarify, is, over X amount of months or X amount of years, and so define what slowly was and define what slowly still is.
Well, I think about starting Trainual and how the building blocks of Trainual, empowering other people and delegating and online training and efficiency and productivity and process, there were pieces of that DNA spread across the last 22 years of building other small businesses. But I couldn't have seen ahead decades to say, oh, someday I'm going to use this to create a software. But
Hmm.
when you look back, you say, wow, if I didn't have those experiences, we wouldn't have built this in the way that we built it. It was decades of going through these things that helped me understand the pain points and understand the customer that we're serving to be able to build it in the specific way that we did and solve those problems. And so I think lessons, like you said, it's years of going through failing with customers and failing with bad hires and not showing someone how to do something, and they put in their notice, you have to jump back into that position, and you're asking yourself, why didn't that work? Well, over time you start to get better at those things, and then you want to show other people, here's how I do it. So
Yeah,
it's definitely a long game, entrepreneurship.
it's definitely a long game, right? So, okay, so let's talk. I want to talk long game, but I want to rewind to the beginning,
Okay.
right? And so you are raised in New England. New England is incredibly cool. My wife and I were there a few years ago. We spent 2 weeks going all through New England,
Hmm.
and we loved it. We loved it. Um, but tell me about growing up in New England.
Yeah, so I was born in Massachusetts, and my whole family was from the Northeast. My mom was in New Jersey, my dad was in Rhode Island, and everything there is tight. It's tight knit. It's wired together, and the towns are all close together. Everything's congested. Everything's small, and to me that congestion of everything was kind of chaotic. It even driving through the towns where I grew up, you'd pass through 15 towns on the way from where I grew up to downtown Boston. And to me, that was just kind of chaos. And so I think navigating uh, the streets of Boston, the traffic, all of that, and becoming good at navigating chaos
Yeah,
actually helped lay a good foundation for creating a small business. I was kind of used to things just being Frankenstein together, and a lot of small businesses start that way. And so I would say it provided that, that sort of hard wiring for me.
yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So you grow up in New England. The chaos is planting seeds in you to kind of build this, not only this future business, but the businesses along the way.
Hmm.
Um, so talk to me about, that's chaos of New England. Now, kind of zoom in and take me to what was it like growing up in your house?
My house, I would say, was super supportive. I have a younger brother who's now our CMO here at Trainual, and he and I have always had a great relationship where I was the operational business person and he was the creative marketing person, and so we've always been a really good duo. My parents were, my mom, when I was a little kid, she was home with us. When I was a teenager, she went after a career, went back to school. And so I got to see what she was doing, applying for jobs, going to school, learning that, that second phase of her life. My dad was always in the corporate world. And so growing up, he was around on the weekends if we were lucky, but throughout the week, he was always traveling. He was never there. And so I always knew I wanted to be in business because I would see my dad with like his suitcase and his cologne or his briefcase, and his. Well, I'd visit his office, and they had like the waterfall thing you'd throw pennies in,
Yeah.
and so I knew I liked business. It felt cool, but I didn't like the corporate world that was always pulling him to be on the road or pulling us to move to a different city. And so as a kid, business, the only job I could have was trying to make money on my own in our neighborhood. And so it was, cleaning people's patio furniture and cutting grass and finding all sorts of odd jobs to just kind of like make $20 to go buy a CD, or
Yeah.
make $50 so I could buy some basketball shoes. That's what entrepreneurship was to me as a kid, but my parents were
Yeah.
always supportive.
Yeah, that's cool. So I want to chat about that because I grew up in a household where my mom was home, raised us. Um, she never went back to school, but your mom did. And so what was
Mhm.
that? What was that like? What did you learn about balance and evolving to a next chapter of your life? And that must have been what was that like?
So at the time, it was kind of like my world did sort of a 180. My dad had gotten this different job where he could be home more often. My brother and I were getting a little older and more independent. And whereas up until that point, my mom was always the one home, it flipped to my dad being always the one home. And me having him to talk to about my company that I was starting, and at the same time, seeing what my mom was doing through a lens of someone running a business. Now I'm critiquing how the salon she goes and works is run, and so it's just a really interesting thing to absorb the experience of
Yeah.
my mom jumping into the workforce, my dad coming back with all this corporate experience and getting to kind of coach me on cost of goods sold and supplies and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But I really got the benefit of both of them at different points in my life.
Yeah, that's cool. And what as you look back in hindsight, what did they, who you are today, right? In hindsight, what did they teach you that maybe wasn't clear then that's clearer today?
My mom was the people side. She was the empathy and the understanding people and the listening and the being polite. And I think all of that made me a good leader. And
Hmm.
then my dad was the like execution, critical thinking side. And he had a couple sayings. One was do it now. He would always say to me and my brother, do it now, do it now, do it now. And in at that time, the context was like, I would leave my shoes on the stairs or something. And
Right.
do it now is like bring them up to your bedroom, don't walk past them. But in my head, it really helped ingrain to stop procrastinating, to actually
Yeah.
execute and get things done. And so both my brother and I have realized now, years later, that just that simple do it now has made us execute on ideas. We get together and brainstorm and we think of all these things. And then a week later, we put them into motion in the company. And that I think stems from my dad saying, do it now. So that was
Yeah.
a important lesson.
I love it. So I want to talk about that. So here you have your mom who's more of the people side, the empathy, your dad's kind of the execution, do it now. And now you have a piece of software that has execution and empathy in it. Right. So I don't think that's a coincidence, right? And so I think one of the things that people look for in software is, okay, the execution is there, but how does it feel when I'm using it, right? Is it
Mhm.
intuitive? Does it kind of connect with my people, right? And so kind of
Mhm.
talk about how maybe those influences helped create and be part of, or the energy of Trainual.
Yeah, it's so interesting, the connection. I love how deep you're going with this because, like I couldn't have predicted. It's not like in
Right,
high school when my parents are like sitting me down and having conversations at the counter. I was thinking, oh, someday this is going to be useful in my
right.
business.
Someday this nagging advice, right?
Yeah.
Because listen, I still walk upstairs and with my wife leaves shoes on the staircase and leave them there because to me it's I don't mind that they're there, and it doesn't bother me, and I'll get them the next time I come down. My kids will. So, but it's like, but I am also influenced with, still messages that my parents send me. So it's like,
Yeah.
you never know where they will sprout, is my point.
Totally. So,
Yeah.
before I get to answering your question, the other thing
Yeah.
my dad used to say is finish, like all the time, reliably finish. And so, again, there was this idea that executing, doing something now, taking action, and then also finishing, like don't leave things open ended,
Hmm.
is important. And so, when you fast forward now to Trainual, which is a business playbook software helping companies document their systems and processes, it's both the people side of how do we make the employee experience at a company great? How do you answer questions before people have questions?
Hmm.
How do you create really clear expectations and alignment so people know when they're doing a good job in the business? All of that creates a better workplace. And that serves a need that my mom struggled with in her jobs when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Was like, why isn't the company helping with this? And then on the flip side, the idea that Trainual has like the accountability side, the tracking, the progress to get to 100%, I think kind of scratches the itch of helping when it's finished.
Yeah.
Like get started, make some progress, and know that you're actually caught up, that you're up to speed. And
Yeah.
it's funny. I've never unpacked that the business actually does those things,
Yeah.
stemming from my child. This is like a therapy session.
Yeah. But I want to talk about the idea of finishing, right?
Mhm.
Because finishing is partly technical and partly intuitive, right? So
Mhm.
it's like there's instincts involved there. So, I had my own business with my brother, so I know what it's like to work with my brother. When I graduated college, I was 23. He was 25, and we started an internet company. This was, in 1995 that we ultimately sold. It was an incredible experience.
Wow.
Um, and we intuitively knew kind of that it was time to sell. We intuitively knew, and every week we would incorporate new things into the company that made sense. But it was partially because we learned it, but we could learn 20 things that week, but knew to incorporate the one thing, right?
Mhm.
I'm not saying we were always right, but and so
Yeah.
how do you know? So I want to tap into that because I think that's really important. So how do you know? I'm a business coach. I talk to people, for solopreneurs to Fortune 100 companies, everything in between, all day, every day. And a hard thing for people is making a decision,
Yeah.
right? And so, and a lot of people that I work with are reading articles, reading books, listening to books, right? Learning a ton of new things every day, listening to podcasts.
Mhm.
How do you know the one thing that you got to implement to evolve the business, the level of consciousness that week? I just want to kind of tap into your instincts with it.
Yeah, it's a good point. So when I say finish and do it now, I don't mean do everything and finish everything. And I think that would be a misinterpretation, because there's so many opportunities that come onto our plates and so many ideas. So finish in a lot of ways can be checking something off your to-do list you didn't do, but you're not going to do it and you don't care anymore.
Hmm.
Like it's in a way, it's you're just stopping it from lingering, from sitting
Yeah.
there. And so how you filter that decision, how you decide what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, to me, it's like the things that keep bubbling up. When we
Hmm.
talk about something a couple times, you're like, oh, I just got to get this done. Like now you're
Right.
just inspired to take action.
Right.
Whereas if you have some obscure idea, I get these a lot when I'm running. I run with my phone and I just jot these ideas down in a shared notepad that my chief of staff, my assistant has, and then we'll
Yeah.
have a meeting about it. And even in those meetings, I'll be like, yeah, that idea is stupid. Can't
Yeah.
like cross it off the list. I never want to see it again.
Yeah.
But you have to have just the bigger context of what are we trying to do in the business? Does this particular project or idea or task relate to the thing that we're trying to do in the business? And then just do you have the gut instinct, passion behind it to say we need to move on this thing because it keeps popping up into my head.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So the we do we need to move? It keeps popping up in my head. Now connect the dots for the listener on, is it what the people are asking for? Is it what you're hearing from inside the walls? Is it what the client is listening for? Or is it just a good idea fed by your own internal ego? Not you. I'm just saying in general, right? So I think there's a lot of times CEOs, business owners, C-level execs make decisions, but they haven't listened to the client to know
Yeah.
what the client wants. So they can't, they're like, wait, why isn't this selling? Why aren't we building market share? Well, did you ask your audience? They're like, no, we just assumed they wanted it. So just kind of talk about the connection of that, of that kind of bigger picture type stuff that you're evolving.
Yeah, so at Trainual, I think it's almost the reverse. We ask the customer so often. We have these
Yeah.
product teams that are doing customer calls all the time, and we collect customer ideas, and our customer support and success teams are always funneling ideas into a channel that we have. And so we have so much feedback coming in that the feedback from your customers can almost take priority over the bigger ideas that can move the business forward.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's constantly a balance of, we want to make sure our existing customers are happy and that we're incorporating their feedback, but we also want to have a product or service that is attractive to the right customers, to more of the right customers. And so when I think about our product, for instance, we have a free trial, a ton of people sign up and kick the tires. And I'm always thinking, do we put bandwidth into the things that our existing customers are asking for? Or do we put bandwidth into the audience that's 100 times as big that it could sign up in the next 2 years if we had X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
And that's a decision that you have to make with your leadership team. And I don't think there's a right size fits all approach. It's very situational.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. I hear you on that. I find myself too when I'm in the boardroom with the C-level people, similar to what you're talking about. It's the not necessarily knowing, but brainstorming and getting all the ideas out, and then basically creating a space to narrow everything down to just kind of that one thing, right? That
Yeah.
one simple thing. But to get
Yeah.
to simple is very, very difficult. I want to talk about you and your brother. I loved working with my brother. Is he older or younger?
Younger.
Okay, so I was the younger, right? And so once in a while, I would have to say to my brother, "Can you stop talking to me when we're in the boardroom? Like, I'm your little brother, and we're at home." And so, talk to me. So your brother's the CMO, right? You said your
Mhm.
brother's the CMO. What's his name?
Jonathan. Great name,
Jonathan.
right?
Oh, Jonathan. Okay, great name. So he's the CMO. You're the CEO, right? What have how do you guys decide kind of how do how do you ultimately decide that you wanted to work together?
Yeah, so when I was building Trainual, it was inside of my consulting business. So I guess rewind a little in the story. I had sold my video company. I started a consulting business. I had 5 other employees. We were building this software as a prototype, just as part of the consulting work we were doing. And so we had Trainual as a software that we only used for our own clients for a few years before ever launching it as a business. And so it was late 2017. I started talking with my brother about, what if we put up a landing page or spun off this product as its own company? We would need to market it. We would need to promote it. We'd need to have some kind of funnel. And he was doing some marketing consulting on the side. He was working at an ad agency in Boston and doing some consulting on the side. And he said, "That sounds fun. I'll do that little side project with you." And so he convinced the ad agency he was working with to let him work remotely. He moved to Arizona for a couple months, and he put all the energy into creating a website and a brand, and recording videos of me and putting them out on Facebook. And that was what got the wheels going. And so
I love
bringing
it.
him into Trainual was just us getting to work together again on what felt like a fun side project.
Yeah.
And, I already had 5 other employees. So the product already existed. And so we really looked at it pretty objectively and said, what is the value of this work? How do we quantify this to compensate you and make you part of the team? And it wasn't until, a year and a half later that it actually turned into a full-time salary, and he had other direct reports and that sort of thing. But it
Cool.
was an evolution. So I think what was important from the beginning is that we didn't just decide, hey, we're brothers, we got nothing to do, let's start a business together.
Yeah.
We were actually already doing the thing we're really great at, just separately, and we came together. And then the other thing that was important is we didn't just whimsically say, like, let's just do like a 50-50 partnership. It was really like, well, what role am I playing? What role is he playing? What's fair compensation? We already have an existing team. And so setting all that up from the beginning made it super black and white to go forward
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. I love it. What's one thing your brother has taught you?
He has taught me that done is better than well done.
And what would he say? It looks like he's in the room. What would he say you taught him?
He might be imaginary, in the room. He's not actually here. He's in
Oh,
Boston, so he
oh,
doesn't
got
work
it, got
here
it,
where
got
I
it.
am. What has he said that I've taught him? Probably a lot about people management and
Mhm.
how to grow a team and grow a business. He was always the one that I delegated to in my early businesses. I
Yeah,
was 14, I had an 11-year-old brother. He was my first employee.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so I would always give him the stuff, and he became exceptional at doing a ton of different stuff.
yeah,
And so when it came to starting Trainual's marketing, he was doing all of the stuff, but he had to learn how to manage a team, to do PR, to do the website, to do video, and to do it better than he did as
yeah.
a
I love
talented
it.
guy.
I love it. All right, let's talk about people management. I love talking about people management. I think um, it's really, really important, and most people don't know how to do it. And so let's talk before we even get into Trainual, right? As a business coach, I find myself often working with managers all over the country, teaching them how to manage people. Because what I find is companies, whether it's small, medium, or large, they hire people uh, because they promote people because they were good at their jobs to be a manager. Don't
Hmm.
teach them how to manage people, and then everything starts to fall apart, and
Hmm.
they don't understand why. So I love talking about people management, and so kind of take me inside the world, your world of what people management means to you, and from your perspective, the things that people miss that they really need to pay attention to.
Yeah, I think of the people that I manage as my clients. When I was consulting, I had a way of meeting with my consulting clients once a week, and we would talk about what they needed to get done, what bottlenecks or challenges that they had on their plate that they needed just someone to bounce ideas off of. We would talk about what they wanted to get done for the next week, what help they needed, how I could help them. And then I'd come back again a week later and we would recap and do the same thing all over again. And I didn't realize I was building this skill in people management. And now that I have a team of direct reports, a leadership team, I think of them very much in the same way. Like they are running their own business, their
Yeah,
own team, and I am they're my client. And so my job is to show up and listen and provide space for them to give me updates, put challenges on the table on the agenda for us to talk through. And it's very much bottoms up. And so I think a lot of people think of management, maybe from the outside, if they haven't done it, as, oh, I have to actually manage the person. The word sounds like you're coming in and doing all the work. But I really think that management, people management, is about the person coming to you and you being there to support them, and help them however you can and provide accountability and
yeah,
share experience. And that's worked really well for us.
yeah. It's awesome. Um, I want to talk about providing a space, right? You mentioned providing a space. I'm a really big believer in that. Like part of management is, I would say a big part of management is not telling people what to do, but creating a space for them to raise their own awareness, right? And so it takes patience. You mentioned this word a lot, listening to your people. And so talk about, that space that you create, because there's a lot of time and patience and proper energy and tone and cadence of it's a very sacred space, and that's what people I think miss. They try to kind of managers try to rush through the day. I got a big checklist, but But managers have, in my opinion, and I see it in the ones that I train, who transform to creating a sacred space. It evolves the game rather quickly. So can you just kind of talk about what you mean when you talk about providing a space?
It's almost like farming, like growing plants, and you're trimming bushes, you're watering, you're walking up and down the aisles, you're observing, you're trying to understand where the bugs are. Like there's
Right.
a it's kind of a Zen thing. I love the opening to this because it put me in such that like Zen space.
Yeah.
And I think that's what creating that space is about. In my consulting company, over 5 years, we worked with 150 different small businesses. And I had
Yeah.
this flagship project where we'd go into a company and we would do confidential one-on-one interviews with every single employee. And the reason for that was that I was looking for the common denominators of what are a lot of people saying? What are the things that people are afraid to say? What have they given feedback on that has not been implemented? Where do they think they're being ignored? Where do they have like good ideas? And so I would interview all their people and create this list of 300, 400 pieces of suggestions and feedback. And it wasn't to isolate any specific person. Like I said, it's to find the common denominators. And then I'd work with the business and say, okay, what on this list can we just execute on immediately? Because your people just gave you all this feedback and you want to show them that it was worth it. That you hear them, you're actually acting on what they said. And so we would always pick out 10 quick wins. And they could be things like, this person could really benefit from a second monitor because they're killing so much time switching between applications all day, or the sink in the back drips, or the clients don't like this when they come in, and then we'd fix those things within 2 weeks, and it creates momentum, and then you've got the energy to tackle all the bigger things. So what I think creating that space is just having a reliable system for people to give feedback consistently. And then
Yeah.
it's acting on that feedback and
Yeah.
showing them that their feedback matters.
Well said. Well said. And I think I'll add one thing to that, to make it, letting them know that their feedback matters, which is tell them how it evolves something, or is connected to the vision or the growth of the business. I think
Mm-hmm.
that feedback loop is
Mm-hmm.
also really important. I think you probably do that, but I think just to kind of throw my additional thought on that. Um, I want to talk about reliable systems you're talking about. I love Trainual. I think your product is phenomenal. I think a lot of companies do not have systems and processes in place. That became very evident in March of 2020 when COVID hit, and companies had to immediately send everybody home to work.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have companies who are still trying to figure it out. Right, I would say a majority of companies, and I see it from solopreneurs to Fortune companies that I work with, everything in between. You can't create the systems and the processes overnight. It doesn't happen that way. And so let's talk about reliable systems and how people begin the process of building those.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think the first step is any business that is operating, has customers, is making money, they have processes. They
Yeah.
have ways that they do things. They might be inconsistent, they might be broken, but they have processes. And so your processes exist before your systems, and you put a system in place to add some structure to a process that's working and to replicate the process that's working. And so I agree with you. Most people don't have these documented, they don't have them written down. And so it's not about sitting down and creating your processes, it's more about collecting them. It's about harvesting all of the right ways, the company verified ways, the best practices, and then putting them in a place that other people can access them. Our system is just one of the ways to collect all of these processes and to distribute them out to make sure that everyone's operating from the same page, the same playbook. But most businesses struggle to get what they know, get their business out of their brain. That's one of the
Yeah.
things we say all the time is if you went around, all of your people know how they operate. They know what they do. They know what they're responsible for. That's how the business stays alive.
Yeah.
But the business carries a lot of risk if you don't have that stuff written down, if you don't have it transferable between people, if you don't have it consistent between
Yep.
people, and that's the opportunity.
That's every, the story goes that people would ask Albert Einstein his phone number, and he would go to the phone book and look it up. And they would say, Mr. Einstein, you're one of the smartest people in the world. You don't know your phone number? To which he would answer, I don't like to waste my brain power with information that's easily accessible. And I find what you just said a huge problem in small businesses, corporate, large companies, that they keep everything in their head. And if you don't get it in writing, you cannot control the narrative. You cannot control the ultimate customer experience. You cannot control a lot of what you think is under control. And so to those who are thinking right now as they listen to this, oh, I have it all in my head, right? What do you say to them in simple fashion?
I would say whether it's in your head or someone else's head, uh, your head is a very vulnerable place to back up information.
Yeah,
you know?
right. It doesn't have a Dropbox, right?
Right.
And if you want everybody's head being in the same direction, right, you got to get it
hmm
out on paper.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be written on paper. It can be recorded on video. It can be a screen recording. It can be a
Yeah,
series of photos, however you capture how you do something. It's what creates alignment between you and the person doing the work.
yeah,
And so many businesses delegate before they document. They say, "Can you do this thing?" And then when they do it wrong, there's repercussions, or
yeah,
you snap back the responsibility because it was done wrong. And what's really happened is there were no good instructions. You didn't agree on the set of instructions, the rules, the guidelines, whatever it was, before you handed that off. So how could you expect it to be reliably done right? And
right.
so for adding people, if you're trying to grow your team, you need to provide clear instructions, set people up for success. That's what it's about.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with everything you just said. I want to highlight the word alignment that you mentioned, because I think when you're in alignment, you can take action relatively quickly. It seems
Mhm.
like you can get into a flow state. You can be slash work. You can be above the line, if you will. A lot of, terminology a lot of companies use. But when you're in an adjustment period and you're out of alignment, nothing seems to be able to be smooth.
Mhm.
And so I just want to kind of like just highlight and emphasize what you're saying to be so spot on. You got to get things out of your head, out of everybody's head, onto paper, so you can build, scale, and grow a business. So I love everything that you're talking about.
And I'll add on to that when you're getting things out of your head, I don't ever recommend starting with SOPs or processes, because that is a really detailed thing to get out of your head. And so before you get to how to do something, you got to start with who does that thing.
Yeah,
And the people in a business, the roles, the responsibilities in a business, that was the number one thing I saw out of alignment when I would do the consulting projects. So
yeah,
if anyone that's listening, ask your people to pull out their job description or the job posting that they applied to when they were hired, and tell you what percentage of that they still do. How accurate is that to their current day? And
yeah,
the reality is that business has changed so much, and people take on new things, and you spin up new products and services, that you probably don't do much of what you were hired to do now. Your role has probably changed a lot. And so you have to start there as a business and have perfect alignment between me as an employer. Here's what I value, stack ranked the
yeah,
stuff that you do in the business. Let's start there with the
yeah.
responsibilities on your plate. And then let's make sure that each of those are consistent across the other people that do them.
Amen. Amen. All right. I want to kind of continue the conversations on systems and processes, but I want to know what yours are personally. So walk me through kind of your morning rituals, your midday, your, non-negotiable end of days. Like, walk me through the day of the Chris Ronzio, systems in a box.
Okay. So every night I use this app, this sleep timer app that wakes me up within a half hour of whenever my REM cycle
Yeah.
is right. So I get up between 5 and 5:30 every morning, go downstairs, have some water, make some coffee, sit in my office, my home office, and I do a 5 minute, 10-minute meditation thing, usually on Headspace. And then I write in my journal. I have this iPad that I mentioned my EA and my chief of staff. They have the same one, and our notes all sync. So I write in there tasks, things I want to accomplish during the day. And then I get ready and do some kind of workout. So I've been training for half Ironman events. We sponsored one. It's the Trainual Ironman in December. So I've been biking and swimming and running. I'll do that in the morning and listen to some kind of podcast whenever I'm not in the water,
Okay.
because that gets my mind going. So again, I'll be adding things to my list, ideas as I'm doing that. 8 a.m. every morning, I have a call with my EA and chief of staff. It's like a 15-minute stand up to talk through the schedule of the day, talk through the highest priorities of the day, non-negotiable. I always do that. And then the rest of the day is broken up depending on the day of the week. So Mondays and Thursdays are my internal team meetings. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays are either slated for podcasts, external meetings, or just deep work that I got to get done. So we try to
Yeah.
put a theme to the day. That way I
Okay.
can just stick on that type of work and be really productive. I wrap up every day at 5 or 5:30. Go home for dinner every day, unless I've got some kind of important commitment that I got to go to. Date nights once a week with my wife, super important. Been married 11 years, and then just like fun time with the family. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my routine.
Good. Good. I like that. Talk to me about meditation. I'm a big meditator myself. I do it every day. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. So
Mm.
talk to the Think community about the power of meditation and just those moments. I just want to share this too, because one of the things I do when I am coaching, whether I just did this at a YPO 2-day event that I facilitated, or a keynote, or trainings. I was sharing with you, I'm going to be in Arizona, and one of the things I always incorporate is meditation. I call it executive time or
Hmm.
silent time, because sometimes people, they're like, oh, I don't want to meditate, this and the other. But once I get them to do it for 2 minutes, and I have these like 2-minute timers, it can be, the feedback I get is that was the greatest, or that was the greatest, and that was the most difficult 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but most people do not slow down to
Yeah.
just do nothing.
Yeah, it's super powerful. So when I do it in the morning, it is 5 or 10 minutes, like I mentioned, of just sitting and listening to some guided instructions, thinking through my breathing, kind of doing visualizations of whatever light or is flowing through the body, something like
Yeah,
that. And
sure.
what happens is it's kind of like we talked about earlier, creating space for thoughts and everything to creep in. And if you're just going and reactive to the inputs that are coming in around you, then you don't have a chance to reflect and let surface the important insights that are coming from you instead of from
Yeah,
somewhere else. And so just that like 5-10 minute pause in the morning just gets my mind going of all the
yeah,
things that I want to accomplish, or something I forgot about, or something that's bothering me that I need to resolve. And then the other thing it does is there's usually a prompt in the thing I listen to at the beginning that says, remember, think about why you're doing this. So when I'm waking up and doing this, it's always before my kids are up and my wife's up, and it just puts me in the right state of mind to be
yeah,
a good dad, a good
yeah,
person, to
totally.
like come out, greet the kids, not just be running through the kitchen to get to whatever I'm trying to do, but say like, "Hey, good morning. Do you have any dreams? Do you want anything for
Right.
breakfast?" Like and when I start the day doing that stuff, it makes the day so much better.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and I think, I just want to kind of talk about this real quickly. You talk about allowing light to kind of come through your body, right?
Mhm.
I know what you mean by that, but define what you mean by that.
So I'm thinking of a particular, meditation track that I listen to. And what it's doing is it's just, you're imagining like a pinpoint of light or something, and then you imagine that light spreading. And just by going through those kind of visualizations, it makes you puts you in a space where you're not paying attention to the physical inputs of like what the chair feels like or what the
Yeah.
sounds you're hearing. You're letting your mind just start to not be disrupted by anything else. And I think that it's a unique state to put yourself in,
Yeah.
to be open to, almost like subconscious thoughts and ideas that come to you. The
Yeah.
other thing that's been powerful for me is if I'm ever having a day that's just kind of a drag or I'm tired or something, I'll do like a 3-minute or 5-minute afternoon meditation. And it's like I went to sleep for 8 hours,
Yeah.
and you wake up so energized. So that's another
Yeah.
good hack.
I meditated. I interviewed somebody the other day who gave me a new meditation that I've been doing every day, incorporating it kind of into my meditation. And I don't remember what it's called, but it's you take 4 inhales through your nose. You inhale for 4 seconds in your nose, through your nose. You hold it for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds, and then you hold the exhale for 4 seconds, and you do it 21 times.
Oh,
It's
wow.
intense. It really, and so I find myself like, and I think, a lot of times people will say, I get my best ideas in the shower. And and because most people are in a meditative state, they just don't
Right.
realize it. The
Right.
power of meditation is
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. In January of 2022, a buddy of mine who wrote a book called Do Nothing, his name is Rob Dubay. We're starting a group coaching group that is every Monday from 11:30 till 12, and it's going to start off with 10 minutes of meditation, mindset, and then 15 minutes of business coaching. And it's just something. It's every Monday, because what I find and what he finds is, and he does silent retreats and et cetera, is that most people will say, I don't have time. I don't know when to do it. So we thought, all right, let's kind of create a space.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
we actually have a weekly time on Trainual's calendar that's like a team meditation thing as
I like
well.
that.
So yeah.
I like that. My cousin was a senior producer at Oprah, and they did transcendental meditation. And
Oh,
so
okay.
kind of a thing would go off.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about. We're gonna get to Trainual a little bit more, I promise. But let's talk a little bit about your podcast. I find podcasting such a great medium. You're the host of the fastest growing companies and organized chaos, and just talk about the power of the medium,
Hmm.
right? Why you do it, and a little bit about your shows, but just really the power of the medium, I think, is so powerful.
Yeah, so fastest growing companies is really a way for me to learn. It's talking to companies that have all different industries, and a lot of awards will recognize when someone's revenue skyrockets. Like the Inc. 5,000 or 500. But what they don't think about is behind the scenes, what did they do to their infrastructure to support that? How did their
Mhm.
operations scale? How did their teams scale? What dynamics changed as part of that growth? And that's what we cover on that show. So to me, that is just keeping my ear to the ground for our customers and the types of companies that use our product. And so that is like R&D, personal
Yeah,
fulfillment. I just love it, and
yeah,
people love those stories. And then on the flip side, the Organized Chaos podcast, it's a way for me to put out insights that I'm having, or clips from other shows that I've been on. Just anytime I'm telling a story or
yeah,
reflecting a lesson, it's a way for me to give back as I'm on my journey. So I think that the podcasting medium is amazing, but again, it's not for everybody. Just like when you're documenting, not everyone's going to write a long prose kind of thing, so you got to do what works for you. You either write blogs, you might
right,
have a little newsletter, you might do a video thing on YouTube, you might have a podcast. But I think
right.
that the act of putting things out and talking, communicating is just such a great skill to have.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I want to talk about your book. You're the author of a best-selling book called The Business Playbook. Good, thank you. Yes, put it up there. Yeah. How to document and delegate what you do so your company can grow beyond you. I want to kind of highlight, I want to talk about the book, but I also want to talk about the book, The Beyond You, right? Because I
Hmm.
think a lot of times people are thinking that, but they don't know how to execute on that, right? They start their business and then it begins to grow, and then they start growing really fast, and then they can't get out of their own way, and so they get stuck on how to grow it beyond them.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it could mean different things to different people. So for your business to grow beyond you, it might be going from a one-person company to a two-person company, where there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are solopreneurs. And most small businesses never even make it to the stage where they're employing someone else. And so going from that one to two and actually having your business be something other than you and a job that you have is a huge step. But then a founder, somebody gets stuck in a business that has two, three, four, five people. And the next challenge becomes starting to outline departments so that you've got people that are not wearing every hat, but only wearing a couple. And when you grow from that 5 people to 10 people to 20 people, then a big part of the
Big
business
difference.
getting beyond you, yeah, is that you've got people that are doing things you can no longer oversee or manage.
Yeah.
And it is a hard thing for an entrepreneur to go through, but that's where you need a business playbook, something to keep everyone connected and aligned, like we've talked about. So that's the growing beyond you. And then ultimately, I don't know everyone that's listening what their aspirations are, but whether you want to not have to work in the business every day or just take some vacations, maybe you don't want to work full-time hours, maybe you want to sell the company eventually or have your kids take it over. Every business has some eventual ending or has some way that you're not needed if it's successful. And navigating that transition requires something like a playbook too. So the
Yeah.
book is addressing all of that. It's how do you get what's in your head out? How do you communicate it to your teams? How do you make sure it sticks? How do you keep it updated? And a really simple guide for how to do it.
Yeah. How will Trainual grow beyond you?
Trainual has already grown way beyond me. We have people in using the product in 183 countries. And when you think about my role here is this, it's sharing stories, it's coaching and my clients, my team leaders.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I do here. And it's the product vision that I'm keep continually trying to, push the edges. So Trainual has already grown far beyond me. Our department leaders are so much better at their area of the business than I
Yeah.
could be, and I love that. That's success to me. And
I
so
love
at some point, if I'm not the right leader anymore, maybe it entirely grows beyond me. But for now, I love this business. I wouldn't be doing anything else but this.
I love it. I love it. Passion and fulfillment is so important. How would how would your dad use Trainual if it was available? Same with your mom, you know, 20, 30, 20 years ago when they were in their businesses.
Wow. So my mom worked at a few salons. She went to aesthetic school to be an esthetician. She ended up starting her own small business, but never got to the two-person mark. It was her business, it was her job.
Yeah.
So if she had this back then, she would have been bringing on other estheticians and staffing them through the week and showing them how to get clients and showing them how to service clients or bringing
Yeah.
on a bookkeeper to do the jobs that she wasn't the best at or didn't want to do. So it would have been empowering back then. With my
Yeah.
dad, he was in the corporate world in a time when everything was pen and paper and flying across, zigzagging across the country to train factories and mergers and acquisitions. And you just think about how much easier it is today, how lucky we are that you can just write down some instructions, record a video, send it across the world. Business has such an advantage today.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about, you're talking, you love what you do. I want to talk about fulfillment for a minute because I think we're in a time right now. As we record this, it's October 29th, 2021. It'll be released in, about, 1 to 3 months. But success without fulfillment equals failure, one of my favorite Tony Robbins quotes. And so I think people are looking for fulfillment today more than ever before.
Mhm.
And so, what does that feel like, and how do people get it?
So, what does fulfillment feel like? We talked earlier about being able to work and see the impact of your work, closing that loop. You added on to what I was saying. And I think that's fulfilling. I think when you work and you never see what the outcome of all your hard work is, it's hard to be fulfilled. But entrepreneurs and everyone within a business needs to pause and celebrate success a little bit.
Hmm.
And when you take the time to celebrate your wins and, praise everyone around you and look how far you've come, reflect back, measure against where you started, that's really fulfilling, at least to
Yeah.
me and to people in our company.
Yeah. I love what you're talking about, praising others. I think it is so important, and I really do believe it takes selflessness to do it. I also believe that 95% of every culture is driven by the energy of the CEO and how they move and talk and walk. And I'm not surprised that I love your products, promote your products all the time, knowing that it came from kind of, your mind, just kind of knowing how you operate. And so now I know we're almost an hour in, but let's talk about Trainual, right? And
Sure.
so, um, let's talk about Trainual. So, tell the listener Trainual and what it can do for them.
So Trainual started really simple as your business needs a manual or some instructions for how it works. And then you need to train or communicate that manual to your people, both when they're first starting at your company and then anytime the instructions change and you want to make sure everybody is up to speed on the newest best practice. So Trainual, we call it a business playbook. It's for the profile of your company, your story, your founding story, your values, your mission, just what makes you you. It's to capture everything about your people, your team, who does what, your org chart, your roles and responsibilities, about your policies, like your handbook, your rules, what's okay and not okay in your business, and then your processes, your SOPs, what makes what you do consistent. So, like I said, we've got thousands and thousands of people around the world using it. It's a really simple, easy, accessible product for people that are scaling up from just a couple employees to hundreds of employees, and we're trying to keep it easy and fun at the same time.
Yeah, I love it. Let's talk about easy, right? As we kind of close out this interview, and I'm very grateful and appreciative of your time. How do people get to easy, right? I think it was Mark Twain. I may be botching this up a little bit. I think it was Mark Twain who said, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter
But
story. And
sure,
then I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
Winston Churchill said, if I had more time, I would write a shorter speech. Getting to easy is very difficult.
Yeah.
And so talk about the journey and the formula to get to easy.
Yeah, hard is easy. Easy is
Yeah.
hard. Right?
Yeah.
It's that commitment to efficiency that we talked about at the very, very beginning of this. You
Yeah.
know, you start with something that's complex. Or just like when I grew up in New England and how they layer on streets and houses and the whole infrastructure is nuts there. They just paved where the cows walked, that sort of thing. Like you create chaos left unorganized,
Hmm.
and so in a business, in any process, uh, just give yourself time and you'll create a mess. And so it
Hmm.
creates intentionality to organize and to make something simple. And so if you give yourself space, like we talked about, if you give yourself the time, if you listen to the feedback of your people, if you listen to the feedback of your customers, and then if you're intentional about doing it now, right, and putting that into action, then you can make things easier little by little by little. And that's what wins. It's
Yeah.
the simplest, most intuitive, easy experiences.
Yeah. I love it. Um, Chris, this has been great. Trainual.com. I'll just say that as far as the website. I'm really appreciative, and I podcast because I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
And this series came about because I podcast live every day at noon, but they're quick 15, 20-ish minute podcasts. And I wanted something that was a little deeper. And so I kind of created this series because I crave the education, right? And I also do it for the listener as well. Um, but to me, it's like a mini master's class. And
Yeah.
so that I get to not only learn from you, but your mom, about, and her reflection on empathy, your dad on execution, and do it now and finish, and your insight on, listening and being intuitive, and most importantly, moving with intention. And I think how you've described how you built your company, how you approach your day, waking up, and things of that nature with your routines and your rituals, intention, in alignment with passion, it allows you to take action and change people's lives, which is what you're doing internally for your people and externally with all of the people all over the world that are growing and evolving, not only their skill set, but their level of consciousness, their level of confidence in how they can do things, because of an idea that you had. And so I'm really grateful. I love what you've built. I have and will continue to refer it to many companies that I work with. Any closing thoughts, Chris?
Well, now I need to call my parents and give them a co-founder title. I guess you helped me realize how connected everything is. No, I really appreciate the depth of this discussion, and I think that theme of intentionality is a great one. So I appreciate you having me on, and this has been so fun.
Yeah, this has been great. Think community. If Chris can help you, please reach out. You can go to trainual.com. How else, Chris, can they connect with you?
They can check out the book at thebusinessplaybook.com or my website, chrisronzio.com, or find me on Instagram or LinkedIn. That's where I hang out, Chris Ronzio, both places.
I love it. Oh, one last question. Favorite book?
Favorite book? Well, this week, mine. So everybody should go get it.
All right, good. I'll take it. I'll take it. No, let's leave it at that.
I would say, no, I'll point to the forward in my book is from Michael E. Gerber from the E-Myth. And that was the first business book I ever read. Yeah. So I got to point to that one.
E-Myth is a book that every person should read. It's an incredible read. I read it multiple times, and it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Chris Ronzio, CEO of Trainual, I appreciate your time, your insights, and your wisdom. Thanks, man. Appreciate you, and I appreciate your parents as well. So thanks. They taught me a lot today too. All right, stay on for just a minute.